A loud cough was heard from my parents' bedroom again. Dad was at work, and I had to drag myself to the bedroom and hand Mom a jar of medicine with the most pitiful look. My mother looked at me, thanked me, and took a few pills at once. Oh, I'm so sick of the circus. I couldn't contain my emotions this time. How much can you pretend to be sick? Mom immediately cried. I just rolled my eyes in response. You think I'm a monster? No. My name is Jenny, and I want to tell you a story about how my mom used to pretend to be sick all the time to get attention. It started in a galaxy far, far away, 10 years ago to be exact. When I was 6 years old, my mom got really sick with a tropical fever. She had a persistent high fever. She could hardly move around the house, and a nasty rash appeared on her body. Mom's been sick for a long time, and my dad and I took care of her all the time, surrounded by love and care. I remember when Mom finally recovered, she made a joke. It's like I've been on vacation, and laughed. At that time, my dad and I didn't take her words seriously, just glad she was finally feeling better. But we didn't rejoice for long. Soon my mother became very ill again, so much so that this time she couldn't get out of bed at all. She was in constant, severe pain, and the worst part was that the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, since all the tests were normal. Then they came to the conclusion that my mom may have a rare genetic disease that is very difficult to detect and even more difficult to cure. Is Mom really going to die? I asked tearfully. No, of course not. He smiled, but his eyes remained sad. But she's so sick. Mom will be fine. You'll see. And fortunately for me, Dad was right. Mom recovered, and we were all back to our old life. In business, Dad was always away at work, and in the evenings, he would watch TV without noticing anything around him. Mom worked 2 jobs, and after work, she was doing something around the house or sitting in the kitchen alone watching soap operas because Dad was too tired at work and wanted to spend time in peace and quiet. We tried not to disturb him. I've been taking care of the most important things, gathering evidence of UFOs on the internet. I got the green men out of the paper and glued them to the most unexpected places to scare my parents. And it was fine until 6 months later when my mom got sick again. Dad put her in the hospital for a full workup, but such frequent illnesses were very frightening to us. However, all the results of the analysis and study carried out more in order. Honey, the doctor explained that I might have a genetic disease, Mom tried to explain. But all your tests show you're fine. Perhaps this disease has not been studied. That's why they can't identify it so quickly. I hope you'll be okay. Dad took her hand and kissed it, and things went back to normal. My father and I did everything we could to make my mother heal as quickly as possible. And we did. But when my mom got better, it was like she wasn't happy about it. This reaction immediately struck me as odd. But I at first did not attach any importance to it. Well, what kind of person enjoys being sick? I later realized that my mom is not as simple as she seems, and she's just pretending to be sick. I came to this idea when I started getting into psychology, and I read that people who don't get enough attention are fond of attracting it in different ways. Basically, they have a full game going, like making scandalous videos for social media, and my mom apparently decided to fake being sick. Maybe when Mom was alone, making sure no one sees her acting like a healthy person. She walked all right and could hold a spoon without any problem. Was looking at my phone and even played mobile games, but as soon as she was around me or my dad, continued to literally die before our eyes. Darling, bring me some water, please, she asked in a faint voice. Of course, dear. Coming right now. Dad came out of the bedroom, and I stayed alone with my mom, determined to seize the moment and take my mother by surprise. I declared, I know that when we're gone, you walk around just fine and do your things. I noticed my mom's eyes flickering nervously, but she continued to play the part. I feel so bad. I think my end is near. Mom, I've been coming on to you for 10 years. I folded my arms across my chest. Why are you like this? Because you aren't sick. Mom sighed theatrically and put her hand to her forehead. She started breathing heavily, complaining, and she even brought up the will. Dad was in tears. I just wanted to applaud. Mom has great acting skills. One can only be jealous. I'm surprised how Dad still hadn't noticed it. I tried to explain that Mom is healthy. She's just drawing attention to herself. Jenny, how can you think that about your own mother like that? Dad was indignant as he chopped vegetables for Mom's favorite salad. All of her tests are normal. Doctors have been unable to say anything for several years. She's very sick. Yeah, once you stop paying attention to her, and then she recovers quickly. Don't you find that odd? No. She just has a rare condition. It's called trickery mixed with hot spots. No, we can't go on like this. She'll drive us crazy if she doesn't stop faking it. But Mom didn't stop. She began to harm me, to spite me, so that I no longer would tell Dad about my suspicions and all that nonsense. One day, my mom not only couldn't get out of bed, she couldn't even move her hand. She pressed pity, saying again that she felt like her days were numbered. She was bringing Dad to tears with that and me to hysterics. If I was deciding who to award the Oscar, I'd give my mom the award for Best Actress. In the meantime, a simple glass of water was no longer the only thing my mom wanted. She asked my father to buy her a TV for the bedroom. Then she needed a new iPhone. Then she wished for my father to hire workers for them to renovate the whole house. Honey, won't the noise bother you? My father said, No, it's okay. The noise strains really sick people. Not those who are healthy but faking it. I noticed and squinted, looking at my mother. Soon I'll have to punish you for saying things like that, Dad said sternly. I clenched my fist and got angry, and I almost cursed in front of my parents. But I stopped in time enough with empty words. I'd better get proof that Mom is not sick. I dismissed the CCTV and covert surveillance option right off the bat. My mom knew exactly when I was at home, and she'd find a camera in her room in 3 minutes. Then Dad would have blown me great. All that was left to do was to provoke my mother into taking actions that will give her away. One day, I didn't turn off the tap in the bathroom and went to school. There was water all over the corridor, and it got to my parents' bedroom. But my mother, clearly sensing the catch, continued to diligently play the role of sick woman and did not turn off the tap. It was turned off by my father coming home from work, and after that incident, he decided to quit from work. He was scared for my mom, and our house was badly damaged by the flood. I was very unhappy. How can my father quit now? This is so stupid. Mom needs care and supervision, he explained as he prepared dinner for the whole family. Dad, I'm tired of telling you. She's faking it. If she was faking it, it should have turned off the water tap. There you go. I've only made things worse with my stunt and Mom taking advantage of the moment. She asked my dad for a new car so she can drive it if she ever gets back on her feet. We immediately went to the car dealership. On the way, I tried to reason with my dad. Why does she need a car if she can't even stand up? Father only frowned. He was uncomfortable hearing the accusations against my mother again. How silly. No one in our family is working. Now every cent was worth gold. And he is buying a car? If we took an IQ test as a family, I would have gotten the highest score, even though I'm only 16 years old. We drove back by car. Upon returning home, my father helped my mother to the window. She almost jumped for joy for a full minute. She was so healthy and happy and naive. Daddy thought that she was so cheered up because of the gift. Watching this whole spectacle, I gave up and decided that there was no use in fighting it. Instead, I got a job after school just to keep our family from slipping into poverty. Everything changed by chance. One day, my dad went to the next town to help his brother with the repairs, and I stayed with Mom. In the morning, she moaned as usual, ostensibly in pain, crying, and she asked me to bring her food. And I said, No, you're healthy, and I know it. I answered and started getting ready for school. Then I went to work. When I got home, I found Mom on the floor unconscious. She wasn't faking at all. Oh no, is Mom really dying because of me? I called the doctors right away, who immediately took my mom to the hospital. Upon learning that Mom was in the hospital, Dad immediately drove back home. Doctors were busy at Mom's ward for a short time, but the whole time I was going crazy. When the doctor finally came out to me, he reported that my mom's hemoglobin was down, but beyond that, there weren't other health issues. When Mom came to her senses, she was sure she was dying. No amount of arguments by the doctors could change her mind. She had a panic attack. It became obvious that she needed help from a psychologist. After all, she was sure that she got really sick, and for once deadly. When I told my dad about it, he immediately found the best psychologist in town. He had several sessions with my mother and finally gave his verdict. Once upon a time, my mother was so tired of work, of domestic chores, and the neglect from my father that the stress had weakened her immune system and she fell really ill with that very tropical fever. Mom then got what she wanted: rest, care, and attention. And when she recovered, everything went back to normal. And that's when she decided to pretend to be sick. So my dad and I would take care of her and didn't put a bunch of household chores on her. Instead of talking, she decided to act out the plays. However, after being sick, she now sees signs of all sorts of illnesses as we listened to the psychologist. We felt insanely sorry for Mom. She got that way because she was just tired. We immediately forgot about our grudges against each other and decided to talk more and discuss problems so that such cases never happen again. Mom was slowly coming to her senses, and soon she was able to get back to work and a normal life. I'm glad we were able to figure out things and finally solve a serious family problem. What would you do if you were me? Write your answers in the comments. Hit the like button under the video and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss new interesting videos. Hi everyone! Today there will be no circus performance, and actually I'm not some kind of clown. I just feel comfortable in such an awkward outfit. By the way, my name is Alana, and today I will tell you why I am wearing such clothes. The thing is that I have a really huge foot size, namely 15. It is too big even for grown-up men, but for a teenage girl? Well, as you can imagine, it's just a disaster. Every single day, people step on my feet. Hundreds of times. Honestly, there was not a single day when my feet did not feel disturbed by anyone, so bruises virtually never disappear from them. Sometimes attentive people even got angry at me after they step on my feet. They say, "Just look at it. She has spread her flippers here." Indeed, as if I was the one who stepped on their feet and not the other way around. Also, when I go up the stairs, I have to put my feet crosswise as so not to fall down. Of course, my feet did not fit any stairs. Well, actually, they don't really fit anywhere. In fact, until the age of 6, my feet were almost normal. They were just a bit bigger than all those of my peers. And my parents hardly worried about it. Then, when I went to school, my feet began to grow at an incredible rate. My parents could not afford to change shoes every week, and instead bought shoes that were several sizes larger than necessary. Such shoes were extremely uncomfortable, so I often stumbled and even fell down. But since I've always been popular, no one in my class ever laughed at me. In my everyday life, people often looked at my feet in surprise. They probably thought it was part of my image. It also was worth telling about the price of ordering custom-made size 15 shoes. This cost almost like a whole motorship or half of it. It's very expensive. I will not even name the terrible number. Once my classmates and I went to the circus, and that is where I first saw the clowns. Someone from my class noted that their shoes were the same size as mine, and we even laughed at it all together. Someone else jokingly said that if I became a clown, then I would not even have to suffer wearing huge shoes. That would be several sizes larger, and they would fit me perfectly. Then I thought, what if, well, I can also be very funny. This is what others love about me. Also, if I put on a clown costume, then no one will understand what the real size of my feet are. When I came home, I told my parents that I wanted to find a part-time job. This made them happy. But when I said I wanted to try working as a clown, my parents became really angry and told me to get the stupid idea out of my mind and do something useful instead. For example, swimming, so that my feet could have a big advantage and would serve as flippers. But I wasn't going to abandon my plan. No, especially considering that swimming would make me show my bare feet to others. No, I did not need more ridicule. Without telling my parents, the next day, instead of going to school, I went to the circus and said that I wanted to become a clown. They told me that there was no costume of my size, and if I bought it with my own money, then they would give me a chance. I had to break my piggy bank with money that I collected for a new phone, but all in all, I got the much-desired costume. When I came back to the circus, I found out that the performances were held in the evening, and I would not be able to perform instead of classes at school. I had to come up with some convincing excuses for my parents. I decided to tell them that I signed up for swimming classes and would attend them in the evenings. My parents were very glad that I followed their advice, so of course they agreed. However, before starting to perform on stage, I had to watch the performances of experienced clowns from behind the curtains and learn from them. Just a month later, I appeared on stage as a junior clown, playing a supporting role. But I was glad about that because I've always known that one needs to start small. Soon I managed to perform on my own and was really happy when I saw that I could make people laugh and the opportunity to be in the center of attention. And the opportunity to be in the center of attention and not think about my feet really inspired me. There on stage, the audience loved me for who I was. The circus had become my true love. But my joy did not last long because after the next performance, the head of the troupe said that it was time for me to learn acrobatic stunts, which, by the way, I couldn't perform properly. I asked him if I could do without them, and he said that in this case, the troupe would have to part with me. He also mentioned that actually I could leave the circus right at that moment. Then I decided to stay and fight for my place on stage. Every day, I tried as hard as I could to master the acrobatic performances, but each time this turned out to be a complete mess, which made management really angry. The circus not only became my love, but also the reason of my tears and nervous breakdowns. I terribly suffered from the fact that I didn't manage to perform the acrobatic stunts, so I felt worthless. I just found myself finding my calling, but it turned out that it didn't quite suit me, or rather, I didn't quite suit it. My relationship with acrobatics did not last long, and after a series of minor injuries during one of the workouts, I got a serious bruise. As it seemed to me, then for several days, I've been trying to learn how to ride a unicycle, just like a circus bear, but everything was in vain. I don't know how many times I fell off it. And as a result, during one of my attempts to ride it, I fell down and hit my hand hard against the wall. I was sure that nothing serious had happened, and soon everything would be okay, but the pain became more severe. So all in all, I decided to stop working out and stay at home for a couple of days. I told my parents that I had a bad jump into the water and took a short break from going to the swimming pool. But the thing is, after a few days, the pain did not become less severe at all, but on the contrary, it was more intense, so I could no longer even move my hand. I went to the hospital, and there I was told I had a dislocated shoulder as well as a muscle strain. So here we are on the same day. My arm was fixed, and I was prescribed maintenance therapy. I had to stay at home for a couple weeks more, and all this time, I've been terribly missing the circus. I really wanted to put on my funny costume and return as soon as possible and get back on the stage in front of my grateful audience. However, when I was ready to work out with the troupe again, my mother said that she signed me up for rehabilitation, swimming in the pool where her friend, who was the coach, was working. She explained this, saying that after being injured, I couldn't return to my usual workout, saying this would not be useful, could even be dangerous for my hand. I had no choice, so I had to agree. Being in a bad mood, I went to the first lesson. I was dissatisfied with everything and everyone in advance and wanted to go home as soon as possible, even before the swimming class began. What could be interesting about swimming at all? It really sucks. However, my opinion changed dramatically. Within 5 minutes after I got into the water, it was a completely new feeling that was impossible to describe. I really enjoyed walking in the water, swimming, and somersaulting. And at the end of the swimming class, the coach praised me and said that my feet were a rare find for a swimmer, and I had a great future in this kind of sport. To be honest, I was extremely pleased to hear this kind of praise addressed to me, because in the circus, I usually heard the reproaches from the head of the troupe. Well, I could even see myself, how skillfully I beat the other swimmers in the pool, and all this was thanks to my feet. Since then, I began to constantly engage in swimming and have no regrets about it. I am really the best and the first one in this kind of sport. I started to participate in competitions and I already have 2 gold medals in my piggy bank, and this is just the beginning. By the way, my rivals sometimes file complaints and say that I need to be disqualified because I have flippers instead of feet. They believe that all my victories should be canceled and I should be prohibited from swimming. Moreover, once the representatives of the Sports Federation came to see a swimmer who was already wearing flippers and never took them off. It was very funny and hilarious when they checked if my legs were real by touching them. Despite the fact that I realized that my true calling was swimming, I still think about the circus and realize that, in fact, I like not performing on stage, but the atmosphere of performing, and that I was able to truly fulfill myself in swimming. Well, I could actually go to the circus at any time and enjoy the work of professionals. Now I know for sure that sometimes it is necessary to listen to our parents because they know us best of all. And who knows better what we are the most talented at, and capable of. You may have noticed that I continue wearing my clown costume. In fact, this is all in order to distract attention from my feet so that others do not realize that this is my real size. Sometimes I dress in ordinary clothes, but clown shoes always stay with me, and I can no longer imagine my life without them. Fortunately now, I have nothing to hide from my parents, and they gladly give me money to buy a supposedly new clown costume. Hi guys, my name is Tara, and I'm kind of an unusual girl. To be clear, I like pretty standard stuff, movies, games, and hanging out with friends. It's my body that's unusual. My arms and legs can bend at unimaginable angles, almost like something out of a comic book. It all started when I was a kid, around 6 years old, when my mother looked in on me on bed in one night. She noticed that I was sleeping in really strange positions. At first, she didn't think it was anything important since all little kids are pretty flexible. When I turned 10, I decided to show her a trick. I showed that I could bend my arm in the opposite direction. I'm sure I did it because at that age, I didn't understand that it wasn't normal, but my mother did. And the trick, where as far as she could tell, her daughter broke her arm right in front of her, just horrified her. Mom immediately called an ambulance. The doctors were also sure I had a broken arm, but since they didn't find any wounds, they decided to send me in for a full examination to understand how I did something like that. After long and exhausting examinations, my mother and I were finally referred to a doctor. The doctor went over the notes and made his diagnosis. He said that I had hypermobility. Simply put, I was very flexible. And not just my arm. My whole body was like that. Let's be honest, this kind of condition isn't normal, so it's called a disorder and can cause pain. But I had a fairly simple form, and to my joy, I didn't experience any pain. The doctor also added that this flexibility might go away once I get older. By the time I turned 14, the elasticity in my body not only hadn't gone away, but it had started to be even more noticeable. Mom, of course, didn't like it, but I did a lot. I always looked forward to PE at school so I could show off my special talent. The PE teacher asked me to do exercises. I began to flex my joints at different angles, my classmates trying to follow along. Then I did the trick that I showed my mom when I was a kid. The teacher saw how I bent my arm against its natural fold and how some of the other kids were already trying to copy my trick. She blew the whistle to stop them before they broke something. She came up to me and took me to the principal's office. My mother was also called to the principal. They told her that my academic performance was poor and that I had also put the health of other kids at risk. But I didn't ask anyone to copy me. Like any teenager, I just wanted to show what I could do. The principal and my mother decided that from now on, I wasn't allowed to show my talent at school. It was really hard for me in normal classes. I was bored and twiddling my thumbs. And in my favorite class, PE, I wasn't allowed to do anything at all. The teachers even let me be on my phone for the entire period just so I wouldn't bend my joints and show the other kids how I did exercises. This made me feel pretty stressed, which is why I was always in a terrible mood. Although my mother agreed with the principal that I shouldn't show off my hypermobility at school, she could see how much I was suffering. She decided that a shopping trip would help cheer me up. Like a lot of teenage girls, shopping for something that relaxes me. As I walked through the mall, I noticed music playing. There were girls doing gymnastics up on a little stage. It looked like an advertisement for their gymnastics school. I froze in place and stared at their smooth, flexible movements with admiration. Mom already knew what I was thinking. I wanted to become one of them, a student of the gymnastics school, but she didn't try to stop me either. She knew it might make me happier and that I might finally stop looking so crabby all the time. After waiting for the show to finish up, I went over to their coach and found out how to join them. I also talked to the other girls, who were surprisingly pretty nice. The next day, after all my boring classes, I went straight to gymnastics school. I was sure that I would finally find my place there. It turned out that I was very wrong. The girls who at first were friendly and told me and most importantly showed me all the difficult exercises they had mastered suddenly started being really hostile. The fact is, while I had trouble with somersaults, if the coach or one of the girls showed me a pose or a stretch, I could easily repeat it, no problem. These girls who had been doing gymnastics since they were kids spent hours stretching just to learn one pose. I just needed to see it because of my natural talent and the fact that everything came so easily to me. Everyone began to hate me, everyone except the coach, who praised me. She seemed to have high hopes for me. However, her praise only made things worse. Now, on top of envying my talent, the girls were jealous of the attention she was giving me. In the next class, I was once again sitting on the sidelines, buried in my smartphone. Just like in PE, I was afraid of making the other girls angry. I get why they were mad. Imagine from the time you're a kid, you're brought to this gymnastics school 3 times a week and forced to sit in uncomfortable and even painful positions. And then when you're 14, I show up here, easily do everything that you've worked so hard to learn over those long, agonizing years. In short, that's where I am. It was rough. And after the second lesson, I took all my things and never went back. Of course, this whole episode didn't exactly make me feel great. It was hard to live in a world where you're not like everybody else. Being unique only leads to trouble and misfortune, so I had no choice but to keep living my life on autopilot. Eating, sitting through boring classes, doing homework and sleeping, so on day after day. One day when I was walking home from school, I saw a huge tent spread out in an old stadium. One that hadn't been used for a long time. Someone had rented it out. At first, I thought it must be a circus with trained animals. I hated those. I couldn't stand how cruel they were to the animals and the terrible conditions they kept them in. I was overcome by a wild desire to get into that tent and find out what was happening inside. I would take pictures and show them to the local authorities so they would shut the place down. I knew that entering someone else's property was illegal, but I decided that it was worth it to do the right thing. Also, to be honest, I wanted to do something to disrupt the boredom. I've been stuck inside for so long. I was lucky, and no one was guarding the stadium. But even so, I didn't dare go through the main entrance. I carefully walked around until I found a small gap in the wall that would let me get inside. I stuck my head through to see if anyone was there. I heard cheerful music and a lot of people's voices. Even though the gap was pretty small, and my flexibility finally came in handy, I ducked behind a small railing and looked in at the arena in the center of the tent. I didn't see any exhausted animals, though. Just professional circus performers, clowns, a fire eater, a strongman. They were rehearsing for their next performance. I couldn't see very well from behind the railing, so I gathered my courage and climbed into one of the seats. The artists left the stage and others came out to replace them. Beautiful girls in dazzling costumes. I immediately knew who they were. I'd seen similar costumes at the gymnastics school, although they were a lot less flashy. They were indeed gymnasts. Once on stage, they began to perform their act. The things they did were like nothing I'd ever seen. They knew more poses than I could possibly remember, having bent as if they had no bones at all. I wanted to give them a round of applause, but I managed to catch myself just in time. If I hadn't, I would have been found and maybe even arrested. After the act ended, I decided to leave as soon as possible before they found me. I immediately ran home, overcome with emotion. I locked myself in my room, turned on some music, and began to repeat what movements I remembered. I must admit, this time I couldn't do them on the first try. I had to try over and over until I got it right. And you know what? I liked the feeling that I could achieve something through training and hard work. It made each pose I managed to learn from the gymnast that much more valuable to me, though there were some that I couldn't get right. The next day after school, even at the risk of being caught, I went there again. This place seemed to draw me there somehow. It seemed magical in a way. I decided to go through my secret passage. After making sure that no one was waiting on me on the other side, I took a seat in the hall and settled to watch the show. The rehearsal as before started with other artists. I couldn't wait to see the gymnast. They were the ones I came to see, but this was not destined to happen. A beam from a searchlight suddenly fell on me. I didn't understand what had happened. At first I was confused, but then I was about to run away. A voice came through a loudspeaker hanging on a pole, asking me to get up on stage. Oh, now they were going to call the police. Then they would call my mom, and then they would tell the school, and then I'd be expelled for sure. But there was nowhere to go, and I had to obey. Almost all the artists I had seen were there on stage. The strange thing was that even though I broke into their tent illegally, their faces weren't threatening, but actually pretty friendly. The presenter approached me. He was also, as I understood it, the director of the circus. He asked what I was doing here, and if his competitors had sent me to steal their program. I said that I had just come to see the performance. The director thought about it. I expected him to call the police, but instead he asked me to show him what I could do. The look on my face let him know that I had no idea what he was talking about. The director said that he saw me yesterday and that only a very good gymnast could get through that little gap. And now everything was clear. They had been waiting for me to show up. It was so awkward for me to show them anything, especially with them being pros. I asked for music to help me calm down somehow. Once I got into the right mindset, I was able to do the routine that I had been practicing all evening the night before. There was a sudden round of applause, something I obviously wasn't expecting. The director told me that I had a great talent, and it would be a shame if I didn't develop it. He invited me first to study, and then to perform with them in the circus. I never imagined something like this could ever happen, even though it was only my second time there. For some reason, this place and these people felt like home to me, so I agreed right away. There was only one small hurdle left: to tell my mother about it. So, my friends, what talents do you have? Tell your stories in the comments and subscribe to our channel.